Admiral James Walker stood tall in the center of the Galactic Council's grand chamber, his weathered face illuminated by the soft glow of countless alien data screens. The massive circular room towered above him, its crystalline walls stretching up into darkness. Around him, representatives from over 300 alien civilizations watched from their floating platforms, their quiet whispers and subtle laughs echoing through the chamber. The Ancient, a being of pure energy contained within a transparent shell, hovered at the highest point of the chamber. Its voice resonated through the hall, carrying a tone of amusement that made Walker's jaw clench. "So, humans have finally achieved full space travel," the Ancient said, its form flickering with each word. "Tell us, Admiral Walker, how does it feel to accomplish what most species master in their early development stages?" More laughter rippled through the chamber. Walker spotted several representatives not even trying to hide their amusement. A green-skinned diplomat from the Mercator Alliance was practically wheezing with laughter. "We're proud of our achievement," Walker said, keeping his voice steady. "And we're here to share our theories about dimensional travel beyond the fourth dimension." The laughter grew louder. The Ancient's form pulsed with bright light, a sign of its entertainment. "Beyond the fourth dimension." The Ancient's voice dripped with mockery. "Your species barely understands basic fold space mechanics, and you dare speak of higher dimensions. Even our youngest civilizations know that stable travel beyond the fourth dimension is impossible." Walker activated his handheld projector. Above him, a complex mathematical model appeared, showing Earth's latest theories about dimensional physics. "Our scientists believe consciousness itself might be the key to accessing higher dimensions. We have evidence suggesting—" "Evidence," interrupted a tall, crystalline being from the upper platforms. "Your species still thinks quantum mechanics and consciousness are linked. Such primitive thinking was discarded eons ago." The Ancient raised its shell-encased form higher, addressing the entire chamber. "Let this be a lesson to all. Every few cycles, a young species comes to us with grand theories and dreams beyond their understanding. They wave around basic equations like children who've just learned to count, thinking they've discovered something new." Walker felt his face growing hot, but he maintained his composure. He thought of the secret messages from Project Infinity, of the breakthroughs Dr. Stone and her team were making in Jupiter's hidden facilities. They'd chosen him to represent Earth precisely because he could keep a straight face while their real work continued in secret. "Perhaps we are primitive," Walker said carefully, "but humanity has surprised you before. When we first contacted the galaxy, you said we'd never achieve faster-than-light travel within a century. We did it in 20 years. A simple matter of copying existing technology," the Ancient dismissed, "like a pet learning tricks from its master. But speaking of higher dimensions, such delusions could be dangerous for your species' development." A new voice joined the conversation, belonging to the Supreme Commander of the Dominion Forces. His massive, armored form leaned forward from his platform. "Perhaps the humans need a reminder of their place in the galaxy. My forces have been monitoring their expansion. Their colonies are vulnerable." Walker's hand instinctively moved toward where his sidearm would usually be. But of course, no weapons were allowed in the council chamber. The threat in the Supreme Commander's words was clear. "We came here in peace," Walker said, his voice firm, "to share knowledge and join the galactic community as equals." Equals? The Ancient's form flickered with what seemed like genuine surprise. "Admiral Walker, your species is barely out of its cradle. Return to Earth. Focus on mastering basic fold space travel. Leave the complex physics to civilizations that have spent millennia studying them. When you're ready, in a few thousand years perhaps, we'll welcome you back for more serious discussions." Walker bowed stiffly, protocol demanding a show of respect, even in the face of such condescension. As he turned to leave, the laughter followed him, echoing through the chamber. But deep inside, a small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Let them laugh. Back home, in the swirling clouds of Jupiter, humanity's greatest secret was taking shape. Soon, they would all understand just how wrong they were about the primitive humans. The doors of the council chamber closed behind him with a resonating thud, and the galactic laughter faded away. But in just a few months, that laughter would stop forever. Deep within Jupiter's swirling storms, hidden from prying alien eyes, the research facility known as Project Infinity floated in a bubble of engineered calm. Through reinforced windows, the gas giant's endless orange clouds churned, providing the perfect cover for humanity's greatest secret. Dr. Emily Stone stood before the facility's main observation window, her reflection ghostly against the backdrop of Jupiter's storms. Behind her, dozens of scientists worked at their stations, their quiet focus broken only by the gentle hum of quantum computers and the occasional burst of excited whispers. Dr. Stone, Tom Reed, her young assistant, rushed into the room clutching a datapad. The 7th simulation just completed. You need to see this. Emily took the pad, her eyes widening as she scrolled through the results. Run it again, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. And wake up the AI systems. I want triple verification. Already did, Tom said, grinning. 3 times. The numbers don't lie. We've done it. The main display lit up with a complex web of mathematical equations. To most people, it would look like nonsense, but to Emily, it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. The equations proved what she'd suspected since she was a graduate student. Consciousness wasn't just an emergent property of the brain. It was a fundamental force of the universe, existing in the 7th dimension. Send a message to Admiral Walker, she said. Tell him. Warning lights suddenly flashed throughout the facility. Emily's heart jumped until she recognized the pattern. Not an emergency, but a visitor alert. Speaking of the Admiral, Tom said, nodding toward the entrance. James Walker strode into the research center, still wearing his formal uniform from the Galactic Council meeting. His face was tired, but his eyes were bright with anticipation. Please tell me you have good news, he said. I just spent 6 hours being laughed at by energy beings and living crystals. Emily projected her data onto the main screen. They won't be laughing much longer. We've cracked it, James. The 7th dimension isn't just theoretical, it's accessible. And humans are naturally attuned to it. The Admiral stared at the equations. Explain it to me in simple terms. Remember how aliens think the 4th dimension is the limit? That's because they're looking at space-time all wrong. Emily pulled up a new diagram. They treat dimensions like layers of reality, each stacked on top of the other. But we discovered they're more like threads in a fabric. And consciousness, human consciousness specifically, can weave through them. And that's why the aliens can't do it. Walker asked. Because they don't have the right kind of consciousness. Exactly. Their civilizations evolved differently. They developed incredible technology, but they lost something along the way. Something we still have. Emily led Walker to a sealed door at the back of the facility. It opened with a soft hiss, revealing a massive chamber. In the center, surrounded by a forest of equipment, floated what looked like a standard space vessel, except for the strange, shifting patterns that seemed to move across its hull. Meet the Prometheus, Emily said proudly, the first 7th-dimensional vessel. While other ships try to bend space or fold it, this one simply exists in multiple dimensions at once, like our consciousness does naturally. Walker walked around the ship, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. Will it be ready in time? The Dominion's threat wasn't subtle. I give them weeks, maybe months before they make their move. We're ahead of schedule, Emily assured him. The ship is ready for its first full test. We just need what? A pilot. Someone with an exceptionally strong connection to their consciousness. Someone who can stay focused even when their perception is spread across 7 dimensions. She looked at Walker meaningfully. Someone like a decorated fleet admiral with a history of exceptional spatial awareness. Walker stared at the ship, understanding dawning on his face. You want me to pilot it. You're the perfect candidate. Your psychological tests show an unusually strong ability to maintain mental clarity under extreme conditions. If anyone can handle seventh-dimensional navigation, it's you. Outside the facility's windows, Jupiter's storms raged on, hiding their work from the galaxy that mocked them. Soon, very soon, humanity would show the universe just how wrong they'd been about the limits of what was possible. The attack on Mars Colony 1 began without warning. The Dominion warships appeared from fold space like dark stars, their massive forms blocking out Phobos from the colony's view. Within minutes, the colony's outer defense platforms were reduced to floating debris. Inside the colony's command center, Governor Marcus Reed watched in horror as red warning lights filled his displays. "Get me Earth Command," he shouted, his voice barely steady. "And someone wake up Admiral Walker." But the Dominion had planned well. Their first strike had taken out Mars' main communication arrays. The colony was alone. Across the solar system, similar scenes played out. The Dominion fleet struck 4 other human colonies simultaneously. Europa's underwater city lost contact first. Then the mining outpost on Mercury went dark. The research station orbiting Venus managed to send one last message before it fell. They're everywhere. Back on Earth, the Pentagon's war room was chaos. Admiral Walker stood before the main strategic display, watching as more red dots appeared across the map of human space. Each dot represented another lost colony, another 1,000 lives in danger. "Sir," a young lieutenant called out, "the Galactic Council is responding to our distress signal." Walker's jaw tightened. "Put them through." The ancient's glowing form appeared on the main screen, its tone as condescending as ever. "Admiral Walker, we receive your request for assistance." "Request?" Walker's voice was steel. "The Dominion is attacking civilian colonies. According to your own laws, you're obligated to intervene." "The laws apply to recognized spacefaring civilizations," the ancient replied smoothly. "Your species' status is technically still under review. Besides, the Dominion has assured us this is merely a preventative action. They're concerned about your rapid expansion and unrealistic ambitions." Behind Walker, the displays showed more colonies going dark. Europa's underwater city had gone completely silent. The mining outpost on Mercury was showing critical damage to life support systems. Preventative action. Walker's fists clenched. "They're slaughtering civilians. A regrettable situation," the ancient said, its form flickering with what might have been amusement. "Perhaps this will teach humanity to focus on proper development rather than chasing impossible theories about higher dimensions." The transmission cut off. Walker stood in silence for a moment, then activated his secure communicator. "Dr. Stone, how close are we?" Emily's voice came through, tense but confident. "The Prometheus is ready, James, but the test runs." "There's no time for tests," Walker cut in. "They hit Mars Colony 1. My daughter's family is there." A pause. "Come to Jupiter. Now." The next 12 hours were the longest of Walker's life. Reports kept coming in from across the solar system. The Dominion ships seemed to be everywhere at once, using advanced fold space technology to appear and disappear at will. Conventional weapons couldn't touch them. They simply shifted slightly out of phase when attacked. In orbit around Mars, the Dominion's supreme commander watched the destruction with satisfaction. His massive flagship hung like a dark sword over the red planet, its weapons systematically taking out what remained of the colony's defenses. "Sir," his second-in-command reported, "we've located their main atmosphere processor. One more strike and the colony will begin losing air." "Excellent," the Supreme Commander rumbled. "Let them suffer slowly. Let the galaxy watch as we teach these primitives their proper place." But at that moment, deep within Jupiter's clouds, Dr. Emily Stone was running final checks on the Prometheus. The ship hummed with power, its hull shifting with impossible patterns as its systems came online. In the pilot's seat, Admiral Walker completed the neural link calibration. "Remember," Emily's voice came through his headset, Your consciousness will exist across multiple dimensional planes. It will feel strange at first, but don't fight it. Let your mind expand naturally. Walker thought of Mars, of his daughter and grandchildren in that failing colony, of all the human lives depending on this working. No more tests, he said. No more waiting. It's time to show the galaxy what primitives can do. The Prometheus rose from Jupiter's clouds like a ghost, its hull rippling with patterns that hurt the eyes to look at directly. In the pilot's seat, Admiral Walker felt strange. His mind seemed to float, expanding beyond the confines of his skull. Neural link stable. Dr. Stone's voice came through, slightly distorted. How do you feel? Walker tried to find words to describe it. He could somehow see the ship from multiple angles at once. From the outside, from above, from dimensions he couldn't name. I feel everywhere. That's normal, Emily said, but her voice seemed to come from multiple points in space simultaneously. Your consciousness is spreading across dimensional planes. Don't fight it. Through the ship's sensors, or perhaps through his own expanded awareness, Walker could see the Dominion fleet surrounding Mars. Their massive ships hung in space like dark predators, their weapons still methodically destroying what remained of the colony's defenses. Beginning 7-dimensional drive activation, Emily announced. Remember your training. Don't try to think in normal space. Let your mind. Suddenly, Walker understood. The equations, the theories, all of it became crystal clear as his consciousness expanded fully into the 7th dimension. He could see reality itself as a vast tapestry, with threads of space-time woven through multiple dimensions. The Dominion ships, for all their advanced technology, were still bound to 4-dimensional space, like insects trapped on the surface of a pond. This is incredible, he whispered. The Prometheus responded to his thoughts instantly, shifting through dimensions as naturally as a fish swims through water. The ship didn't need to travel through space. It simply existed wherever Walker's consciousness focused. In Mars orbit, alarms blared on the Dominion flagship. Supreme Commander, a sensor operator called out. We're detecting an energy signature, but it's impossible. The readings make no sense. The Supreme Commander stomped to the sensor display. Explain. It's as if something is existing in multiple spatial locations simultaneously. Our sensors can't. The Prometheus appeared in the heart of the Dominion fleet, but appeared wasn't quite the right word. The ship seemed to exist in dozens of places at once, its form costing through multiple points in spacetime simultaneously. Walker felt no fear, no hesitation. His consciousness stretched across the dimensional planes, seeing every possible angle of attack, every potential future, every thread of reality. The Prometheus moved like liquid lightning through the Dominion fleet. Impossible. The Supreme Commander roared as the human vessel passed straight through his flagship's strongest shields. Their most advanced weapons couldn't target it. The ship existed in too many dimensional states at once. In the Project Infinity control room, Emily and her team watched in awe as their sensors tracked the battle. The Prometheus wasn't just moving through space, it was moving through dimensions themselves. When Dominion weapons fired, the ship simply shifted to a different dimensional plane, letting the attacks pass harmlessly through where it had been. It's working better than we predicted, Tom said, staring at the readings. The Admiral's consciousness is maintaining perfect stability across all 7 dimensions. Emily nodded, proud but worried. The human mind was never meant to perceive reality this way. We don't know how long he can maintain it. In the space around Mars, the Dominion fleet was in chaos. Their ships, the pride of their civilization, couldn't land a single hit on the Prometheus. Walker's vessel sliced through their formation like a ghost through walls, existing in multiple places simultaneously, striking from impossible angles. Full retreat. The Supreme Commander finally ordered, his pride shattered. All ships, emergency fold space jump. But even as the Dominion ships tried to escape into fold space, Walker could see their exit points before they formed. The Prometheus was already there, waiting for them as they emerged. To the Dominion's horror, There was nowhere to run from a ship that could exist everywhere at once. The battle for Mars lasted less than 15 minutes. When it was over, the mighty Dominion fleet was in ruins, and humanity's first seventh-dimensional vessel hung in space like a silent guardian over the red planet. But inside the Prometheus, Walker could feel his mind beginning to strain under the pressure of existing across 7 dimensions of reality. News of the Mars battle spread through the galaxy at the speed of quantum communications. In the Galactic Council's Great Chamber, the Ancient watched the recorded footage for the 100th time, its energy form flickering with disbelief. "Impossible," it whispered, watching the Prometheus exist in multiple states simultaneously. The laws of physics. But the evidence was undeniable. The Dominion's defeat had been total, their most advanced fleet reduced to drifting wreckage by a single human vessel. And now, that same vessel was methodically freeing every human colony under attack. At Europa's underwater city, Walker didn't even need to fight. The Prometheus simply appeared inside the colony's main dome, existing in 20 different positions at once. The Dominion ships flooded the site, their commanders having heard what happened at Mars. Inside the Prometheus, Walker was learning to control his expanded consciousness. The initial shock had faded, replaced by an almost supernatural awareness of reality's true nature. He could see the threads of space-time, could feel the pulse of the universe across all its dimensions. "Admiral," Dr. Stone's voice came through the neural link. "Mercury colony is signaling. They're under heavy attack." Walker didn't need to plot a course or calculate jump coordinates. In the 7th dimension, all points in space were connected. The Prometheus simply ceased to exist at Europa and began existing at Mercury. The Dominion fleet there was larger, clearly prepared for a real fight. Their supreme commander had come personally, his flagship bristling with their most powerful weapons. So, the supreme commander's voice boomed across all frequencies. "The primitives have learned some new tricks, but party tricks won't save you from our full might." The Dominion fleet launched everything they had: dimensional torpedoes, phase-locked beams, quantum disruptors, weapons that could shatter planets, tear holes in space-time itself. A display of force meant to remind humanity of their place. Walker smiled. Through his 7th-dimensional awareness, he could see the weapons' paths before they were fired, could perceive their trajectories across all possible timelines. The Prometheus danced through the barrage like smoke through air, existing and not existing in a dozen places at once. "Impossible." The Supreme Commander raged as his best weapons passed harmlessly through empty space. "No species can." His voice trailed off as the Prometheus appeared simultaneously at 20 different points around his flagship. Not projections or copies, the same ship, existing in multiple dimensional states at once. "You know what your mistake was." Walker's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "You thought technology alone was enough. You forgot to look inside yourselves, to understand what consciousness really means." In the Project Infinity control room, Emily watched the sensor readings with growing concern. "Admiral, your neural patterns are showing strain. The human mind isn't meant to maintain 7th-dimensional awareness this long." She was right. Walker could feel the pressure building. Seeing reality through 7 dimensions was like trying to hold back an ocean. But he couldn't stop, not yet. One final lesson needed to be taught. The Prometheus began to shift through dimensional planes faster than any sensors could track. To the watching universe, it looked like reality itself was bending around the ship. The Dominion fleet found themselves trapped in a web of 7-dimensional space, their advanced drives useless, their weapons hitting only emptiness. "Surrender," Walker commanded, his voice echoing across dimensions. "Return to your space. Tell your people what you saw here. Tell them humanity is not to be underestimated again." The Supreme Commander, his mighty fleet helpless against this display of power he couldn't even comprehend, gave the retreat order. As the Dominion ships fled through fold space, recordings of the battle were already spreading across the galaxy. In the Galactic Council chamber, the Ancient finally understood what it was seeing. This wasn't some technological trick or weapon. This was something far more profound. A species that had found a way to express their consciousness across dimensions that other races couldn't even perceive. The age of mocking humanity was over. The time for learning from them had begun. 3 days after the Dominion's retreat, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. This time, when Admiral Walker entered the Grand Chamber, there was no laughter. The crystalline walls seemed darker, the floating platforms packed with silent, attentive representatives from every advanced civilization. The Ancient's glowing form had dimmed considerably, its usual brilliant radiance reduced to a soft glow. When it spoke, gone was the mockery, replaced by something that almost sounded like awe. "Admiral Walker," the Ancient began, "we have reviewed the data from your encounters with the Dominion fleet. Our best scientists have spent every moment analyzing what we witnessed. We request an explanation." Walker stood at the center of the chamber, looking much older than he had a week ago. The strain of piloting the Prometheus had left its mark. Streaks of white in his hair, new lines around his eyes. But he stood straighter than ever. "The explanation is simple," Walker said. "You've all been looking at the universe wrong, treating dimensions like separate layers when they're really all connected. And the connection point, consciousness itself." Dr. Stone stepped forward from behind him, activating a holographic display. Above the chamber, a complex web of interconnected lines appeared, showing how consciousness wove through all 7 dimensions. "Your civilizations advanced so far technologically," Emily explained, "that you forgot to look inward. Human consciousness never evolved past its natural ability to perceive higher dimensions. We just had to learn how to use it." The chamber erupted in questions. Representatives from 100 worlds spoke at once, their voices mixing in a chaos of different languages and tones. "Silence," the Ancient commanded, its form brightening briefly. "Dr. Stone, are you saying that human consciousness naturally exists across multiple dimensions?" "All consciousness does," Emily replied. "Or at least it did. But most species evolved past it, focusing on technological advancement instead of understanding their own awareness. Humans just happen to maintain that connection." On the main display, footage from the battles played again. The Prometheus shifting through dimensional states, existing everywhere and nowhere, using paths through reality that other species couldn't even perceive. "The ship isn't really the breakthrough," Walker added. "It's just a tool that lets us express what our consciousness can naturally do, like building a boat to swim better or a plane to fly. The ability was always there. We just had to understand it." A tall crystalline being rose from the upper platforms. "But the toll on the pilot. We've been monitoring your neural patterns, Admiral. No organic brain should be able to sustain that level of dimensional awareness." Walker nodded. "The cost is high, too high for long periods. But we're learning, adapting. The next generation of ships will distribute the load across multiple pilots, letting them share the dimensional awareness." The Ancient descended from its high position, coming face to face with Walker. Its energy form pulsed with complex patterns that seemed to mirror the Prometheus's hull. "We owe humanity an apology," it said, its voice carrying across the chamber. "We mistook your different path for primitive thinking. We failed to see that you had maintained something precious that the rest of us had lost in our rush to advance." Emily stepped forward. "We're not here for apologies. We're here to offer teaching. Humanity has opened a door that all species might learn to walk through. If you're willing to learn." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, representatives began to stand. The crystalline beings, the energy forms, the advanced AI constructs. Every species that had once mocked humanity now stood in respect. "The universe is larger than we knew," the Ancient declared, "and humanity will help us explore it. The age of treating humans as primitives is over. The age of learning from them begins." Walker looked out at the assembled representatives of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, all waiting to learn from the species they had once mocked. The irony would have made him laugh if he weren't so tired from touching the seventh dimension. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon hadn't been technology or power. It had been understanding something that had been within every species all along. They had just been too advanced to see it. 1 year after the Dominion's defeat, the Jupiter Research Academy opened its doors. The massive station, built in the same clouds that had once hidden Project Infinity, now hosted students from over 500 alien civilizations. Its crystalline halls echoed with voices speaking 1,000 different languages, all here to learn what humanity had discovered. Admiral Walker, his hair now completely white from his experiences in the seventh dimension, stood at a window watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. Each vessel carried beings who had once thought humans primitive, now eager to learn from them. "Still can't quite believe it, can you?" Dr. Stone asked, joining him at the window. She had changed too. Her eyes held a deeper wisdom from months of teaching advanced species how to rediscover their lost connections to higher dimensions. "Sometimes I wake up thinking it was all a dream," Walker admitted. "That we're still the galaxy's laughingstock." A group of crystalline beings floated past, respectfully nodding to both humans. Behind them, several energy forms practiced basic dimensional awareness exercises, their glowing bodies flickering as they struggled to perceive beyond four-dimensional space. "The new Prometheus fleet is almost ready," Emily said. 5 ships, each designed for a crew of 3. "Sharing the dimensional load makes it much safer." Walker nodded. The original Prometheus had been retired, placed in a museum where beings from across the galaxy could study how humanity had changed everything. Its successor vessels were more advanced, more stable, and most importantly, safer for their crews. "The Dominion sent another peace delegation," he said. "They're requesting training for their own pilots." Emily smiled. "Should we accept?" "Already did. Their Supreme Commander is enrolled in the next semester's Basic Consciousness expansion class. Imagine that, the being who tried to destroy us, sitting in a classroom learning from humans." The Academy's main hall was filled with activity. Alien scientists worked alongside human teachers, combining advanced technology with humanity's understanding of consciousness. In one corner, a group of AI constructs attempted to meditate, their quantum processors trying to grasp concepts that couldn't be solved with pure computing power. "Ambassador Reed is hosting another demonstration today," Emily said. "Want to watch?" They made their way to the Academy's central amphitheater. Marcus Reed, the former governor of Mars Colony 1, now served as humanity's chief diplomat and teacher. He stood before a diverse crowd of alien students, a simple metal ball floating above his hand. "The trick isn't to think about moving between dimensions," Reed explained to his attentive audience. "It's about realizing you already exist in all of them. Your consciousness spans realities. You just forgot how to perceive it." The ball in his hand began to exist in multiple places at once, just as the Prometheus had done in battle. But this time, it wasn't technology making it happen. It was pure consciousness, directed by a mind that understood its true nature. "Every species once had this ability," Reed continued. "Evolution took most of you in different directions, towards technological advancement, but the potential never left you. It's still there, waiting to be remembered." Walker watched as, one by one, students in the audience began to achieve flickers of higher dimensional awareness. A crystalline being managed to exist in 2 places at once for a split second. An energy form briefly perceived all 7 dimensions. An AI construct experienced consciousness beyond its programming. "We did it, didn't we?" Emily said softly. "We changed everything." "We remembered what everyone else forgot," Walker corrected. "And now we're helping them remember too. That's what humans do best. We learn, and we teach." Beyond Jupiter's clouds, the galaxy was transforming. The age of pure technological advancement was giving way to a new era of consciousness exploration. Ships began incorporating seventh-dimensional drives. Trade routes shortened as beings learned to perceive higher dimensional paths. Wars became nearly impossible as species gained the ability to understand each other across multiple planes of existence. And at the center of it all was humanity, the primitives who had maintained their connection to something profound, something that all the advanced technology in the universe couldn't replicate. They had become the teachers of the galaxy, guiding civilization toward a future that combined the best of technological advancement with the deepest understandings of consciousness itself. The galactic laughter had stopped forever, replaced by the sound of beings from 1,000 worlds learning, growing, and remembering what they had lost. And in that newfound silence, humanity's greatest victory wasn't destroying an enemy fleet.